everybody and welcome back to Tenza Motorsports. Today we're going to be talking about a topic that I've been wanting to do for a while, but I actually waited. This video has been on my mind for a couple years now, but the cars aren't quite 25 years old yet, and so I waited. This car is now officially 25 years old, and this will be 25 years old next year. So I'm going to talk about some basic ownership, and then I'll talk about the main topic of the video. Is it worth buying an E46 in 2026? But before we do, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Like if you enjoy this type of content. Also make sure to check us out on Instagram, Tenza_motorsports. We do giveaways. We just recently did a small giveaway. I had a big box of products from Max Speeding Rods, took a picture of it, put it on my Instagram, and said the first person to guess what's in this gets a small prize. I think it was like 20 bucks, and then Max Speeding Rod gave them a discount code for like 40% off to their website, so almost half off to their website. So we do some things like that on occasion. Again, follow us on Instagram, Tenza_motorsports. This video today is unscripted. I've had a few bullet points in my head I want to hit, but I'm not like reading off a teleprompter or anything like that. So if I meander around a little bit, just forgive me. There's a lot of things to go over when talking about the E46 chassis. So it is 2026. The E46 330 Ci that I have here is now 25 years old. Now, 2001 was around the time we started getting the M3s, the 330s. I'm not sure when the ZHP started, but the E46s, when you think of, oh, I want to go get one, a lot of them started coming out around 2001, 2002. So I want to talk about, is it worth to own one of these in 2026? The E46 did come out in 1990. I believe there was some out in 98, but here in the States it was mostly 99 and then 2000. Most of those are like 323, 325s, a lot of sedans. But the E46 as we know it today, the M3s and things like that, started coming out in 2001. And the answer to should you own one, the answer is yes. If you're looking at one, and I've said this in previous videos, try your best to get the 3-liter. If you're looking at an M3, obviously you're in a little bit different price bracket. A cheap 330 can be found for a couple grand. A cheap M3 that's actually like got a good motor in it is going to be like 15 grand-ish. You might find them a little bit cheaper. You know a buddy, or you just know a guy that he doesn't really know what he's got. You might be able to, sneak one by for around $10,000. But most of the time, these M3s are going to be in the mid-teens. This car here can be found for, like I said, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000. It is worth it as long as the engine is in good condition. The transmissions on these cars don't really go bad, especially in the 330. That ZF is pretty stout and can handle a lot of abuse. As long as the engine has been taken care of and you know that it is in good condition, they are absolutely worth it. If you're going to own one of these, though, you need to be able to work on it yourself. And I'm not talking about needing to do like a full engine rebuild. I'm talking like basic fluids: oil, transmission, coolant, brakes, the rear differential. Things like that are really not that difficult to do. Rear differential, simple tools: drain plug, fill plug, you're done. Same thing with the transmission, simple tools, drain plug, fill plug. Your brakes can be done by yourself. I'll link a tool down in the description and show one here. This tool right here I purchased. It comes with two tools, one's here at home and one's at work. You can actually bleed the brakes by yourself. So we're talking, take the wheel off and boom, you can do it all by yourself. You need to be able to do all those fluids yourself. So if you take it to a shop, they're gonna go, oh look, a 19-year-old with a BMW, oh we can tell them whatever we want to tell them, and they'll just totally screw you over every time you take it over there. Which really kind of makes me upset, because these cars again can be found for just a couple grand, which means almost anybody can buy one. In fact, a lot of people could just buy them outright and own them, and you'll still get people going, oh what a brat, they own a BMW, oh dad bought that for him. Yeah, I don't need dad for $3,000, okay? So don't let that get to you. You'll get that with any Mercedes, Audi, BMW, any German car. For some reason, people think that they're just like stupid expensive. They can be if you take them to a shop. You work on them yourself, not a big deal. So all your fluids, basic maintenance, that would be your brakes, some gaskets, a couple gaskets I want to mention, like valve cover gasket, oil filter housing gasket, intake manifold gasket. Not a big deal. Those are really pretty easy to do. Your intake manifold might be a little bit more difficult for somebody who's like brand new to cars. Piece of advice for that would be to label all of your wires. So when you unplug something, put a piece of tape on it, take a picture of it, write on it, whatever you want to do, but just label your harnesses and things like that. This is kind of a little bit hard for me to do this topic because these two cars are so far removed from an original E46. It's kind of hard for me to think, because there are things that on this car are way easier to do now because things are missing in the engine bay. So I'm trying to think of like some other things that are like maintenance wise that might like trip somebody up that's new. Your crankcase ventilation sits underneath your intake manifold, so when you go to do your intake manifold gasket, you just would do all that. There's two coolant lines underneath there. None of these parts are very expensive. Like everything that I just said right there, everything, including like the new coolant system, all the fluids and everything I just talked about is like $500 or $600 worth of stuff. So don't be like, when I'm listing all this stuff out, don't be like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. It's really not that bad. There's two coolant hoses underneath the intake manifold that probably have not been done. I would assume they're not done. The vacuum lines on these cars have issues. You don't even have to buy special vacuum lines. You can just go to O'Reilly's, AutoZone, Pet Boys, something like that, and just buy a, you know, like a 12-foot thing. I think they come in a pack of vacuum line. Just cut off a piece, take it over there and say, hey, I need, you know, 10 feet or 12 feet or whatever it is of this stuff right here. That's really cheap and easy to do, and just go around your vacuum lines. So yeah, all that to say, if you're keeping your car stock, just do the basic maintenance, that kind of stuff there. Everything I just talked about, it's like 98% of it. And here's another 1%, your DC valve. Those are probably bad. That is one thing that you probably want to put an OEM one in. So that might be a little bit more money, but the rest of this is like, you don't have to have BMW OEM replacement brakes. And even if you take it to a shop, they probably won't put BMW brakes on it, but they're going to charge you $800 for brakes that you could have put on yourself for half that. If you take it to a shop and get a brake job done, $800, they're just putting OEM brakes back on it, essentially, nothing upgraded or anything. And for that price, you could easily, I mean, for $800, you could do a lot to the brakes. The other thing I would do is get a tune from Rematch, just so you can eke out a little bit more horsepower, take advantage of any modifications you have, and I'll have their link down in the description below as well. So that's kind of the non-M's a little bit. Nothing super crazy. They do have rear subframe issues. That is probably the biggest thing on these cars. You don't see them as much on the non-M's because they just don't have as much power. The M3s literally rip their rear subframes out, where the 330s and the ZHPs, you don't really get that very much unless you have somebody just sitting there launching the car all the time or clutch dropping and drifting. You don't see it as often, but it does happen. This car did have some cracks in the rear subframe, but I also have 400 horsepower in it, so I don't know when that happened. I can't really look at this as an example. So just keep that in mind. If you live in the Rust Belt, you're probably going to have issues just because if there's a little crack at all, then it'll start to rust, and then that just kind of accelerates it, and then you don't want it to rust too much because then you literally can't fix it because you can't really weld rust. You'd have to like replace that whole body panel to fix it. That overlaps into the E46 M3. Now I'm pointing at this car. This wasn't originally an M3. It is now a 330 Ci because we stole the guts out of this car to make an M3 wagon, and then I bought a 330 donor. So I'm pointing at this as an M3 because the VIN's an M3, but the car itself is not technically an M3. The M3 has the big three, and while I'm recording this, all of a sudden I can't remember the third one. I know there's a rear subframe, your bearings in the engine, and then I can't remember. I'll have the big three right here. If you're buying an M3, again, you're going to spend $15,000 to $50,000 to buy one. If the big three hasn't been done, definitely negotiate that price and really push them on that. Say, you know, oh, it's going to cost me all this money, even though it might not. If you have a welder, you got a buddy that's got a welder, you can drop the rear subframe, $100. You can buy a bushing press on Amazon, and you can do the rear end in about a day. You and a buddy could easily do it in a day. So, but don't tell the person you're buying the car from that. You know, obviously you'd be like, oh yeah, that's going to be $3 or $4 grand to do the rear subframe, and it's going to cost a bunch of money to do all this stuff, even though you might be doing it yourself. If you're a new owner, these are fairly big items to be thinking about. This, not so much. Crankcase ventilation system, not a big deal. Vacuum lines, changing out the coolant, putting a new expansion tank in it, nothing. That's literally like a 10-minute YouTube video and 45 minutes, and you spend half that looking for the correct tool. Like, not that big of a deal. They don't call these big three things the big three for no reason. There's fairly large issues to have. So if you find one and you really don't want to deal with it, try to get one that's already got all that stuff done. Paperwork in hand or it wasn't done. Proof, if there wasn't proof, if you didn't see pictures, if you don't poke your head underneath there and verify that it's done, it has not been done, because people will lie about this kind of stuff. So that would be my only thing about the M3s, is those big three are big threes. Now they still have the same stuff, you know, brakes. The brakes on these cars are just rotors and pads, the same as on these as it is on a 1998 Chevy. So it's not difficult to do the brakes. Fluids, same thing. Coolant systems, fairly similar. All the vacuum lines, check your vacuum lines. That kind of stuff is not a big deal. Overall, I think that the interiors on these cars hold up really, really well. I know that the headliners tend to have an issue. If you pull your headliner out yourself and take it to an upholsterer and get it done, and then put it back in yourself, you can save a lot of money doing that. Pulling a headliner is really not that difficult. Again, it's like a 15-minute video on YouTube. Pull your headliner out, take it to them, then put it back in yourself. That'll save you a lot of money. All this to say, if you're not willing to do this, if you're not willing to work on the cars, don't buy them. Because I am so sick of hearing people talk about how they've had these really bad, awful, expensive experiences with their BMWs, and then come to find out that they didn't want to touch them. They took them to a shop. The shop screwed them over. It's like, that has nothing to do with the car. That has to do with your life choices. If you don't have the time, you don't have the effort, you don't want to learn, don't buy it. It's because then you just give BMW this horrible reputation. Oh, they're garbage cars. You know what? It's not garbage cars because the vacuum system went bad and a 25-year-old expansion tank popped. A lot of this stuff is not a big deal, but it is a big deal if you take it to a mechanic shop. These engines here can easily do 250,000, 350,000 miles with proper care, as long as the oil's been done. This engine in this car, the 330 engine that's in this car, had 220 on it, and then we supercharged it. So there's no issues here, but we also did the maintenance and made sure that it was in good condition when we did it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else on the interior that really go bad. And most of it's like, you know, if the handle on your door card's falling apart, you can get a new door card. Steering wheels hold up pretty well. They're leather, so as long as they've been being, you know, treated, like, you know, put leather treatment on them. People that put sunshades up in the cars, I know that's like, every time I put a sunshade up in one of my cars, my coworker's like, oh, Grandpa's putting a sunshade. You know what? My dash isn't cracked and my steering wheel isn't falling apart. So I would definitely do that on a car this age. Those sunshades cost little to nothing to buy and they take 2 seconds to put up. So I would definitely do that. Sunroofs on these cars. I do want to talk about sunroofs. To me, a sunroof has always been like a novelty thing. If it works, great. If it doesn't, whatever. Especially these mechanical ones where the actual sunshade is just like you just move it yourself. Some cars, that sunshade is like another motorized item. So if it breaks, you can't even like just see the window above you, which is really stupid. Kia and Hyundai. Stupidest thing I've ever heard of in my entire life. I kind of get it with the panoramic sunroofs because they're so big. It's like, well, how far back do you want me to reach? Anyways, I don't want to rant too much about that, but the sunroofs on these cars, they work. When they don't work, get them shut and then just unplug the switch. That's how I look at it. If you want to fix it, go ahead and knock yourself out, but it's going to be really expensive. You'll have to pull that headliner again, or maybe just service the sunroof when the headliner's out. If you have to redo your headliner, I guess you could do that. This car does not have a sunroof. If for some reason, it always worked, but it worked when it wasn't supposed to work. So while I was driving, you could hear it, the tilt where it tilts up like this, kind of like a little fin looking thing. It would just sit there and like move up and move up and move up and move up and move up over like 5 or 10 minutes. It would just sit there and just like, and then I would park it and I'd go into work and come out and it'd be open. And so I finally I think I just disconnected the power from the motor and then I removed it. This car still has its sunroof. The only reason it has its sunroof is because it's working. The moment this sunroof stops working, and we cycle all the time because I kind of want it to break because it's a race car and then we'll take it out and you lose even more weight. The moment this breaks, I'm just going to remove it. But in your case, just unplug the switch, unplug the motor, whatever it is, and then just, again, it's kind of a novelty thing. So that's one thing on these cars I probably wouldn't fix is the sunroofs. Looks-wise, obviously, I think the E46s are almost unmatched. They look so good. I can be driving this car around and you'll find me breaking my neck to look at a stock 323 with a broken front bumper. Like, oh, did you just see that? E46. I'm not trying to pump myself up, but I'm in this car, probably the coolest one around, and I'm sitting there pointing at oh, look, did you see that? 200,000 mile clapped out E46, because I think they just look so good. Anything else? The headlights on these cars, they tend to kind of like fall apart and stuff. Just get some depot headlights. Those aren't expensive. Taillights, kind of the same thing. They're pretty cheap. Don't mix match your tires. Make sure you put matching tires front and rear. That's normally a pretty safe thing. Don't put cheap tires on them. You kind of want to spend a little bit more money on some tires. You don't have to do anything super crazy. Make them matching and just do some like performance all seasons. I could talk about these cars all day long, but I'm going to leave it at this. If you're willing to work on it yourself, perfect. If you're not willing to work on it yourself, don't even bother. Go buy a Honda Civic, and then you don't have to even hardly change the oil on it. The M3s, if you're an M3 buyer, you're probably a little bit more into BMW, and you kind of know what you're looking for, and you already know some of the parameters of the M3. The S54 engine is really good. I've seen them do 200, 250, 300,000 miles, and they can last a long time and be really good engines as long as you're taking care of them. Do you own one of these? What do you own? What's been your experience on it? Have you taken it to a shop? I'm curious to know what some of the shop repairs have been on your car. Also, I want to know what your repairs have been yourself. I have a tendency to look at these cars with rose tinted glasses because I love them so much. And I've been through them so many times that, you know, I see a repair and I'm like, oh, not a big deal. But to somebody who's new, they're like, oh my gosh, my car's broken. And it's like, whatever, I'll just, you know, fuel pump. Fuel pump's another one that we didn't go over earlier, but that's like easy to do. You pop the rear seats right there. A mallet and a little pry bar. You pop that ring open, done. Like, it's not even a big deal. But that, to somebody who's not into cars, who doesn't know, that sounds like a big deal. And it's like, well, I mean, it's 150 bucks and like an hour worth of work if you don't know what you're doing. One thing I want to say right before we go, if you buy one of these, it's your first time owning one, I would always have about $1,000 extra. So the guy on Marketplace wants $4,000 for it. You're going to go, this car's going to cost me $5,000. And that just gives you a little bit of leeway when you get into it and you're like, oh man, a bunch of stuff needs to be worked on. That car costs you $1,000 more than what it actually shows on paper. You're not necessarily going to need to use all that $1,000, hopefully. And that's how I would do it. That's how I'd buy one. I'd just give myself another $1,000 on top of it. You can't afford that $4,000 car until you have $5,000, if that makes sense. So thanks everybody so much for watching, and we'll see everybody in the next video.
Bam!